Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farba. Hungarian Prime Minister Péter Magyar, accompanied by 7 cabinet ministers, has begun his first foreign trip in office with a highly symbolic visit to Poland. The multi-city visit includes Kraków, Warsaw and Gdańsk. Now, in the Polish capital, he is scheduled to hold talks with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk and President Karol Nawrocki, alongside other senior political figures. Now, the program in Gdańsk includes a meeting with former Solidarity leader and former Polish President Lech Wałęsa. Now, the visit comes at a critical juncture for Hungary as Magyar seeks to advance negotiations over the release of billions of euros in frozen EU funds while consolidating his domestic political position amid a rapidly shifting post-Orbán political landscape. We're now joined by Jakub Jaraczewski, research coordinator at Democracy Reporting International, to discuss the details. Good to have you with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about the takeaways here. I mean, it's his first official visit. He did travel before, right after the election, but his first call is Poland. What are your expectations here? What does this mean that he comes here to this country first?
So I think that this visit is happening due to a couple of circumstances. First, of course, is the history and the long friendship between Poland and Hungary, but so is the political closeness between Péter Magyar and Donald Tusk. Both TISA and the Tusk's party, the Civic Coalition, a member of the European People's Party and the European Parliament, are closely aligned, and the positions of both politicians on many things, ranging from cooperation within the European Union, but also immigration, agriculture, are quite aligned. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Magyar to kick off his international presence as a prime minister with a visit to Poland, not only for symbolic reasons, but also due to possible avenues of cooperation between the new Hungarian government and Donald Tusk's cabinet.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned there avenues of cooperation. Now, Magyar is bringing 7 of his ministers out of, I believe it's 16. So that's quite a lot of his government. I mean, there's more than symbolism here, surely. So what do you think? Are we going to get some tangibles at the end of this visit?
So I think that definitely this visit will be a lot of several things. It will be almost certainly about economic cooperation and also lessons learned on several fronts. Not only on the front of advancing the economy and making sure that Hungary will be able to move fast and try to make up for some lost ground during the Orbán era, but also on the topic of the rule of law restoration process. I think that Péter Magyar and his cabinet have been watching closely what has been happening in Poland over the last 3 years with attempts to repair the rule of law, and will be wanting to draw lessons and discuss details. And of course, also, there is the question of closer cooperation within the EU. Now, I think that we will have some statements and perhaps new initiatives being announced after this visit. But it's also important to remember that Péter Magyar has only last week walked into the office and started looking into what needs to be done as the first priority. So I think that this visit will be also slightly careful in order to ensure that there is no overcommitment and that both partners are standing on strong ground for future cooperation.
Yeah, as you said, as lightning fast, he had to hit the ground running. At the same time, also, we have a statement from the new Foreign Minister of Hungary about a new era of cooperation between Poland and Hungary. That also includes the recall of the current ambassador from Hungary to Poland. So what does this signify for us?
I think that this is part of a wider narrative from Péter Magyar that he wants to remove most, if not all, elements of Viktor Orbán's governance, and that likely also includes diplomatic presence abroad. Also, I think that Péter Magyar will be trying to likely make up for the fact that Hungary likely will not seek to recall its commissioner at the European Commission, as there is a strong tradition of new incoming governments keeping the representative on the Commission. So he will be trying to make up for the ground elsewhere, and that will likely include recalling the ambassadors to several countries, including Poland, and starting a new chapter in diplomatic relationships between the countries.
I mean, also, let's go into that for a moment. As the foreign minister, also Orbán, by the way, that's the name, but there's no connection, said a new phase of relations between Poland and Hungary. Now, you mentioned at the beginning about this Polish-Hungarian friendship. I mean, on the political front, tell us a bit, has that been difficult? Why? What about the relationship now? Tell us a bit of that history and where we're going with all this.
So the Polish-Hungarian relationships have a very long history, but its most intensive phase in the Middle Ages has been happening back when both countries were bordering each other and had very close exchange and cooperation. Ever since when the Central Eastern Europe became more fragmented, this relationship has grown apart and became more symbolic than practical. Now, I think that perhaps now there will be first time in a long while that Poland and Hungary will look clearly on what they can achieve together, and there is definitely several avenues for cooperation, not the least keeping a united front and the European Union, as I mentioned earlier, but also reinvigorating the Visegrad Group jointly with Czechia and Slovakia, a format which has been pretty much moribund since Donald Tusk came into power, and he was not willing to cooperate closely with Viktor Orbán in any way. So I think that this is likely an opening of a new chapter where both countries will look in a sober and realistic way on what they can achieve together and what is connecting them, but also being aware of the fact that given the distance and disproportions between the sizes and economies in Hungary and Poland, there needs to be some element of stark realism to this relationship.
Mm-hmm. And also looking at the choreography of all this, I just want to get your opinion. I mean, he's not going to Warsaw first, the capital. Péter Magyar is starting in Kraków, so, well, the former ancient capital of Poland, but he's meeting a certain cardinal there, Cardinal Risch. So tell us, if anything, what's behind the sequencing that it's Kraków first, then Warsaw, and then Gdańsk?
I think it is highly symbolic. Back during the times of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which parts of Poland were also included, and Kraków was the biggest Polish city that was under the Austro-Hungarian rule. This means that the starting point is this historic place where the Hungarian and Polish history meet. Kraków is the resting place of several important historical figures from the Hungarian-Polish friendship, such as Queen Jadwiga of Poland and Stefan Batory, the military commander, Polish-Hungarian military commander. So there is a lot of symbolism, but I also think that meeting Cardinal Risch is an important signal. Cardinal Risch is very much a member of the more liberal wing of the Polish Catholic Church, and Péter Magyar is likely aware that meeting a senior religious figure is always a good way to score several points with the Polish population. So he is meeting a Catholic cardinal, bishop, but he's also, I think, deliberately meeting the figure which is representing the more centrist, more pro-European wing of the church, and who has been appointed by Pope Leo in order likely to boost the centrist wing of the Polish Catholic Church. So there is a lot of symbolism riding into here. I think that one thing that struck me also is that Péter Magyar will take a train from Kraków to Warsaw. Again, a not usual move, but also one which signifies the historical connections. Strong railway network has been an important part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and being able to take a train from Hungary, from Poland, is a thing which is still very much a possibility today. And I think that Magyar is hitting many symbolic tones here.
Well, that's also a very scenic route. One other thing I wanted to ask you, a couple more things quickly, if we can. There's going to be also a visit, as we mentioned, from Kraków, also Warsaw, with Prime Minister Tusk, but also he'll be meeting President Nawrocki. Now, Nawrocki himself had tried to, or was going to see Orbán right before and during the end of the election period there. So how do you think that meeting is going to go?
I think Magyar is also deliberately placing the accents to ensure that he will meet figures from all over the Polish political spectrum, not only centrist liberal icons such as former President Wałęsa and President Tusk, also a liberal, but at the same time he will meet Nawrocki, a right-wing figure. I think this will also be a show that despite what has been the past and despite Nawrocki's soft support for Orbán and so far, Magyar is not going to shut him out and is willing to talk. So it's a deliberate and smart move, and I think it's placing President Nawrocki in an interesting situation.
Mm-hmm. And also pivotal for Europe and also Poland is the issue of Ukraine, Ukrainian support. How is that going to be discussed, do you think?
No, I think definitely this is a new chapter in the Hungarian-Ukrainian relationship as well. And there was going to be a discussion about supporting Ukraine and the European Union and its accession, and also going forward further support. But I also think that Péter Magyar will be careful here. His messaging throughout the election campaign will be that, yes, Hungary will open a new chapter in its contact with Ukraine, and is going to support Ukraine, but there will be red lines, and Hungary will not go as far as transferring weapons or letting its military personnel participate in any way in supporting Ukrainian military. So there will be certainly signals of a new approach between the two countries, but I think that they will be also a little bit careful, and Magyar will be mindful of the fact that many of his voters are conservative Hungarians who are wary of supporting Ukraine too much.
Mm-hmm. And just one quick one also about the region. If we're looking, I know we touched on the V4, but nevertheless, this is a very new Hungary and a new prime minister, much more aligned with European values. What kind of impact do you think this meeting will have also on Slovakia's Robert Fico, someone who has been close to Putin, also Babiš as well? What do you think it's going to do for the region?
No, I think that this will be likely a new opening in the Visegrad group, and this opening will be led by the dynamic of Poland leading the charge and Hungary supporting Warsaw in its regional aspirations. And I think in this format, both Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico and Hungarian and Czech Prime Minister Andrzej Babiš will be willing to engage and cooperate. So this will be definitely a change from what we've seen before. But also, again, there are limits what this format can achieve, and all the politicians involved are likely aware of that.
All right, so it is indeed a big day for Hungarians and for Poles. That first trip of that new Prime Minister Péter Magyar in Poland. Thank you so much for analyzing it. That was our guest there, Jakub Jaraczewski. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.